One day out from the Northwestern Maryland game. Let's make some picks, look around the Big Ten, and look around the country.
You are Locked On Northwestern, your daily podcast on the Northwestern Wildcats, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome in. This is Locked On Northwestern, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. I'm your host, Carter Bird, and thank you for making Locked On Northwestern your first listen for anything and everything Northwestern. We really appreciate it. We're available wherever you get podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever. We're also available on YouTube. Just search Locked On Northwestern. You can find us there. Wherever you are listening, make sure you subscribe, turn on notifications. Make sure you leave a comment. You give us that feedback. You leave a review somewhere. I mean, it would help us tremendously. It helps us on whatever platform you are listening on, and it helps us make the show better for you. Well, today's show is also brought to you by Underdog. Sign up on underdogfantasy.com with promo code Locked On and get your first deposit doubled up to $100. With that in mind, let's talk a little bit about Northwestern Maryland. We've been talking about it all week, but as we do every Friday, it's time for our picks segment. The line of this game, Northwestern at Maryland, is Maryland minus 14-point favorites. Over under a 51.5. Obviously, both teams, we've talked about it all week, have question marks at quarterback. For Northwestern, it's more of a traditional quarterback controversy. A pair of guys kind of still locked in a battle at this point of the year in Ryan Helinski, who has made all 6 starts to this point, and then Brendan Sullivan. How do you see that playing out? We will find out. There's also the question of where is Ryan Helinski on the path to play on Saturday after getting going into concussion protocol 2 weeks ago. Do we see him ready to go? And because that can make the decision for Northwestern. Otherwise, you kind of have to make a call. Do you go with the experienced guy, the guy who has 22 starts, has shown flashes at times, but has been inconsistent at other times, no longer really pushing the ball down the field? Or do you turn it over to the new guy in Brendan Sullivan? Do you let him use his legs? He's much more of a dual threat guy. Probably has a different level of energy and excitement. Maybe this Northwestern team needs that, especially with the way that the offense has struggled recently. Maybe that helps open up the run game. Can Northwestern run the ball? That's going to be a significant question this game. Maryland's been pretty good this year against the run. Northwestern has a strong offensive line, has good running backs. They've had some tough sledding here recently. If they get going, especially if Brendan Sullivan helps unlock that again, I think you kind of have to go with him. On the flip side, Talia Tagovailoa and Billy Edwards Jr. are the two options. If healthy, Talia would go every single time in this game. He's been the starter there for 3 years, and Billy Edwards is a redshirt freshman from by way of Wake Forest. Is Talia ready to go? He has an MCL sprain. Is he good to play in this game? If not, is Billy Edwards? What does him at the helm? How does it hinder that offense? Do we see him struggle to distribute the ball the way that Maryland has so far this year? Maryland's been pretty hit or miss on the ground. Does he kind of unlock their running game some? Does he create room for Himby. Who knows? I mean, I think that that's going to be something that remains to be seen. We don't really have a huge sample size for Billy Edwards. Just 3 pass attempts and 5 rushes. And Northwestern's had 2 weeks to prepare for the potential that he could be starting this game, coming off their bye week, I guess the only a week because it only became a reality last week. But Northwestern should be fairly prepared for this. And how does that change his success on the grounds? Can the extra prep for Northwestern, can it allow Northwestern to kind of corral this Maryland offense that has been pretty strong this year? Then can Northwestern control the football? That's going to be what I am watching for. Can they convert third downs, convert fourth downs, kind of sustain some long drives, control the football, win the field position battle? Can they win the turnover battle? That's been one of the biggest keys we've heard Fitz talk about all year long. I think I will have my eye on that for sure. Can they win those one-on-ones that they were not winning against Wisconsin that Fitz talked about in his postgame presser? Do we see a renewed energy and a renewed focus from this Northwestern team coming off their off week? I think we do. And I think I'm going to take Northwestern. If I'm making a pick on this game, I'm taking Northwestern plus 14 and under 51.5. Made me feel a little bit better. I had this made up in my mind, but happened to be watching Winners with SVP on Sports Center earlier tonight, and I actually saw that that SVP picked Northwestern to cover the 14 points. He's actually going to be in attendance. He did 6. He's a Maryland grad. But that's kind of my take on this game that Northwestern's going to be playing on the road in College Park against Maryland. I think it's going to be a great challenge. But in a second here, we need to look around and see what else is going on around the Big Ten. But first, let's talk about our friends at Underdog. This episode is brought to you by Underdog Fantasy, the easiest place to spice up college football season. It's easy to get started, easy to play while you're watching your favorite team play. I'm sure that they're going to get some lines posted for their pick'em for Northwestern. I did not see them when I checked earlier, but it's easy to play, and it's available in over 30 states. Just pick between 2 and 5 players across any team, not just Northwestern, not just whatever team you may support, and decide if they will finish higher or lower than the total given. It's one of the easiest fantasy ways to play games and to kind of win cold hard cash. It's a way to make it interesting. Go to Underdog to make your own picks. Sign up with promo code Locked On, and Underdog will double your first deposit up to $100. So deposit $100 and get $100 free. Go to UnderdogFantasy.com or find the Underdog Fantasy app in the App Store or Google Play Store. That's Underdog Fantasy, promo code Locked On. Get in on the college football pick'em action today. All right, let's take a look at the Big Ten's games this week. We are going to start kind of as they go chronologically throughout the day. Probably not the most exciting slate of games in the Big Ten. Only a couple kind of lines that were remotely close, that were within a single touchdown, with a single score. And the first one is one of those right here. Indiana at Rutgers. The line is Rutgers -3, and the over-under is 48. Look, these are two bad teams in desperate need of a win. Indiana may be able to score some. I'm not sure Rutgers has shown a consistent ability to do that at all. If IU doesn't win, things are kind of bleak because the schedule does not have a ton of hope winnable games, anything like that. Any chance of a bowl game is gone if they don't win this one, and any chance of a successful season is gone. For that reason, I am taking Indiana +3 and the over 48 in that game. Next, we have Iowa at number 2, Ohio State. The line is Ohio State -30, and the over-under is 49 in this one. Look, CJ Stroud plus weapons equals points. Spencer Petras on the other side, it never equals points. I mean, look, I know Iowa should be rested, should be prepared for this. I don't care. It's not. Game is going to be ugly. It's going to be bad. Iowa does not, as long as uh, the offensive coordinator is the son of the head coach. I think there's going to be issues scoring points over there in Iowa. Or, well, I guess this game is in the Horseshoe at Ohio State. Iowa's defense is good. They are, but they're not good enough to deal with Ohio State. Ohio State is nasty. They've shown why they're the number 2 team in the country. They have a Heisman favorite in C.J. Stroud, who's probably going to take that trophy home, and he's probably going to be the first pick in the NFL draft based on kind of how I'm seeing it. For that reason, Ohio State -30 and over 49 all day long. Next up, Purdue at Wisconsin. The line is Wisconsin -2.5, over under of 51. Purdue's coming off a big win. Wisconsin's coming off a tough loss. Purdue has a better quarterback in Aiden O'Connell. Braylon Allen is a really good running back. He's the best running back in this game, but is he good enough to kind of overcome the fact that, look, Purdue's playing for a potential trip to Indianapolis to play in the Big Ten Championship? What is Wisconsin playing for other than their interim head coach? I mean, they've already had their coach fired. They're already sitting there at, I believe, 3-4. Has season's not gone the way that they want. They have a disadvantage quarterback. At times, they can't run on teams. I'll be interested to see how this game plays out, but I think Purdue's got just something going. Aiden O'Connell, Charlie Jones, got a little mojo there. Purdue +2.5, under 51 in this one. Next up, Minnesota at number 16, Penn State. The line on this game is Penn State -5.5, over under of 44.5. Look, this game's got really fun running backs on both sides and really old quarterbacks on both sides. I think Minnesota's got the better running back. I think Minnesota's got the better quarterback. Penn State's probably got the better overall roster. Can Penn State get off? Well, can both of these teams get off the mat? But can especially Penn State get off the mat after getting splattered last week by Michigan? I don't know. Both teams still have hope here. They both, I guess, theoretically still have their eye on a trip to Indianapolis for the Big Ten Championship. A lot to play for in this one. For that reason, I feel like 5.5 is a lot of points in a game like this. I'm going to take Minnesota +5.5 and the over 44.5 in that one. And that's all there is this week around the Big Ten as far as games go, because you do have 4 teams kind of with off weeks here. You got number 4 Michigan not playing, number 18 Illinois in their red hot season not playing. Michigan State, maybe they did get the win against Wisconsin, but maybe they needed a week off with the way that their season has gone. And then Nebraska is also on an off week as well. Kind of interesting to see those 2 teams at the bottom maybe had a lot more hope coming into the year than it has played out to this point. Now, it'll be interesting. Do they rally in the bye and show life on the back half of the season? Remains to be seen. But that is the picks around the Big Ten, looking around the Big Ten, how I am predicting those to shape out. But as we all know, as Big Ten fans, as Big Ten supporters, as Northwestern supporters, we need to know what our team is up against across the Big Ten with Locked On Big Ten. Every day, host Nate Dickinson and the local experts of Locked On help take you across the Big Ten in 30 minutes. Make Locked On Big Ten your second listen. Locked On Big Ten. Okay. So we quickly ran through the Big Ten picks because there was not a lot. There was not a lot today. But let's look around the country because the country is always fun to talk about the big games happening elsewhere and the big storylines. Well, let's start in the ACC. We got a ranked matchup starting in the early window. Number 14, Syracuse at number 5, Clemson. Clemson is a 13.5-point favorite in this game. The over-under is 49.5. Clemson is quietly just kind of handling its business this year. Cuse is one of the shocking teams in the country. They've had a phenomenal year. It's been impressive. They can run the football between Sean Tucker and Garrett Schrader. Those two have kind of found something for Dino Babers in a time period where, dear goodness, Dino Babers needed it because he was starting to skate on some thin ice with some hot blades. And I think there was going to be some discussions about his job security had they not have had the season they've had so far. This feels like a game that we've seen in the past where Syracuse finds a way to kind of muck it up and keep it close. For that reason, I think 13.5 is too many points. Give me Syracuse plus 13.5. If I could, in my picks like this, I mean, I may buy it up to 14 just to get that extra protection, get that extra half point. But I'm going to take that under 49.5 as well. That's kind of how I see this game playing out. I can see it could be being kind of low scoring. Let's see what happens, obviously, on Saturday. Next up, number 21, Cincinnati at SMU. May not jump out as a game that's that interesting, but Cincinnati's a 3-point favorite on the road in Dallas, and over under 58. SMU is a game team. They've been competitive with some good teams this season. They've obviously have their issue with players redshirting, using their redshirt years this year to kind of save up for either transferring or coming back to the team next year. Cincy has subtly struggled with some teams this year. They had that loss to Arkansas at the beginning of the year, I believe. And look, I think that SMU is plenty game to give Cincy every bit that they want, and maybe and then some. Give me SMU plus 3 and over 58 in that one. Next up, in the SEC, really big game. It's on that 2:30 CBS window. Number 7 Ole Miss at LSU. Unranked LSU, but LSU is a 2-point favorite in this one. Over under of 66.5. Ole Miss is undefeated, talking about potentially making a dark horse run to Atlanta for the SEC championship. LSU's maybe better than I thought they were a few weeks ago. They went on the road last week, got a huge win at Florida, down in the swamp, place where we've seen some other teams, Utah, struggle earlier this year and come away with losses. Well, Ole Miss, I think they're wildly overrated. A really, really bad Auburn team hung with them this past week. Gave them every bit that they wanted in that one. I just don't see this going all that well for Ole Miss on the road in Death Valley. LSU season's kind of coming around after we thought it was going to come off the rails early. Death Valley factor is absolutely in play here. Both teams want to run the football. For that reason, give me LSU minus 2 and the under 66.5. And those are my picks there. Next up, we're going west. UCLA, number 9 UCLA at number 10 Oregon. This game could decide the Pac-12. The line is Oregon minus 6. Over under of 71. What version of Bo Nix are we going to see? Bo Nix, the good Bo Nix is really, really good. The bad Bo Nix makes you want to pull your hair out. Autzen will be very, very loud. It'll be an entertaining game between two teams who have been really good this year. UCLA has been surprising. I picked them to lose to South Alabama, and honestly, it might be the closest game they've played all year. But UCLA has impressed. But Oregon, since week one, they've been really, really impressive too. They've kind of handled teams. And I think for that reason, I'm going to take Oregon -6. Give me the over 71 in that one, just because I think something fun about when you get two offenses with athletic quarterbacks out there in the Pac-12 making plays. Can you see a lot of points? I think so. Next up, number 20, Texas at number 11, Oklahoma State. Texas, 6-point favorite in this game. Texas -6 is the line. Over under of 60. How real is Texas? It's been a question that I've wondered all year long. They drummed Oklahoma 49-0 in the weirdest game of the year. They hung with Alabama, but they lost to Texas Tech. It's a really, really, really confusing season, but we are used to that with Texas. They do it every year in Austin, it feels like. Well, Oklahoma State is a home dog here. Oklahoma State, I think, is a really good team. I think it's a measuring stick game for both of these teams. See where they're at on the season. See which one has a chance to go play for a Big 12 championship. And look, you're going to give me 6 points with the number 11 team playing the number 20 team at home. Go Pokes. Give me Okie State +6 and the over 60 in that one. Next up, number 24, Mississippi State at number 6, Alabama. The line is Alabama -21, over under of 61.5. I wanted so hard to pick Mississippi State to compete in this game. But they have been so bad in the Mike Leach era against Nick Saban's Alabama teams. I believe they have 9 total points in all of Mike Leach's games at Mississippi State against Alabama. They have not fared well in any capacity. Is Bama mad about last week coming off the loss? Will Anderson and Nick Saban have been talking about how they were tight, they had anxiety, and they didn't show up with the right intensity to play. So really weird energy around that team. You got some bad storylines with Jermaine Burton punching a Tennessee fan in the head, leaving the field on Saturday. It's a lot of weird storylines there, but the quarterback battle will be really, really fun. Bryce Young, defending Heisman winner, played really well last week on the road in Knoxville versus Will Rogers, somebody who puts up stupid video game-like numbers every week, it feels like. Give me Alabama -21 just because Mississippi State doesn't have that track record of success. Give me under 61.5 in that one. Next up, number 17, Kansas State at number 8, TCU. The line is TCU -3.5. Over under of 53. TCU has played big game after big game after big game. They got to be exhausted from that, right? You would think. Two really fun teams in this one. K-State runs really, really well. They do a lot of fun stuff. They utilize Adrian Martinez the way that he needs to be utilized in an effective manner. Imagine what happens when you actually play to your players' strengths. Nebraska, cough, cough. Meanwhile, TCU, Max Duggan, you've got just explosive players on the outside. I believe we have a receiver named Quentin Johnston, who's putting up dumb numbers the past couple of weeks. But give me K-State and the Wildcats. E-Mall, K-State +3.5, over 53 in that one. Finally, just for the storylines, I picked this one. Texas A&M at South Carolina. The line is A&M -3. Over under of 44.5, which is so low. A&M cannot score. Both teams coming off a bye. Both teams should be realistically prepared for the other. maybe they've got some tricky things as well. South Carolina's kind of trending in the right direction. The last time we saw them on the field, they got a big upset win over Kentucky. A&M had a kind of gutting loss to Alabama. If A&M loses this game, is it time to have a conversation about Jimbo Fisher? For that reason, because I think that would be really, really fun to talk about. Give me South Carolina +3. Give me the under 44.5 in that one. And those are the games around the country. That's going to do it for today's episode. We looked at the Northwestern Maryland game. We looked at kind of some things to watch for, some reasons why I think that game Northwestern can cover. They can kind of muck it up and keep it close. I do think the under. I believe I had the under in that game. And then we looked around the Big Ten and made picks for all of those games. There weren't many this week, not very many good ones either. And then we looked around the country at the biggest games, the biggest storylines. Really fun to do that every week. Of course, all of those lines are brought to you by our friends at Bet Online. Really great resource. They've got lines and info for all of the games that you need to know about this weekend. You can go to their website or you can go to their website and find their stuff. It's really, really, really a great resource for me and the Locked On Podcast Network. But thank you for making Locked On Northwestern your first listen for anything and everything Northwestern. We really appreciate it. I'm your host, Carter Bird. You can follow me on Twitter and Instagram at CarterBird13. Appreciate it. Go Cats. Let's see what happens this weekend. Does this team come out of the bye ready to roll? Do they come out with a new energy, new focus? Remains to be seen. I will see you all next time. I'll see you all on Monday after the game on Saturday. We'll have some reactions, some takes on whatever takes place. But I'll see you all then.